Hello there and welcome to this week's Granny's Garden. Now here beside me I have what in Spanish is known as aguacate and in English is an avocado plant. And as you can see, it is an extremely sad, sorry plant. Now this was brought to me by my son and my daughter-in-law. They are very definitely new gardeners, newbies, so they've got a long trajectory ahead to be able to learn from mistakes. So can this plant be brought back? I don't know, but we're certainly going to give it a heck of a try. So what I'd like to do today is just have a look at the plant, what's gone wrong, and can anything be done to bring it back. So let's get at it. Now, I don't normally talk about houseplants. I'm very definitely a garden person. Everything for me is outside. Now, I have an area here in the basement beside the window, which is for overwintering certain things. For instance, like coleus or two of my lemon trees and things like succulent arrangements. But the very second any type of good weather comes, I jump over to the door and out they go. So let's have a closer look at this plant. The first thing you notice is it's very, very long, leggy and spindly. From the base of the soil up onto the top of the plant is about 2 foot in length, and there are only leaves at the top or the crown of the plant. Now my son did say that the leaves form, they look absolutely lovely for a while and then they fall off. And if I get closer up to the stem, you can see there's evidence of what he was talking about. All of these little brown marks here are where leaves have formed and fallen off. The next thing I'm looking at is that the leaves are droopy. Yes, they are. And unfortunately on the internet, they always talk about the avocado plant about needing moisture, moisture and more moisture. And especially if you're a new gardener, that can be very confusing because there's a big difference between moisture and wet. Now, if I get close with more experience, what I see is that first of all, they're forming brown tips and then they're starting to curl. And then they curl completely. Now, to me, this is definitely an indication of overwatering and not underwatering. Not all plants that wilt is because they haven't been watered enough. Many a time it's because they have been overwatered, especially if you're getting this leaf curl on this avocado plant. So in order to continue my search for evidence of overwatering, I've got to go down to the actual soil itself. Now, I've had this plant here with me for about 3 days. I haven't obviously watered it at all. But when I first came in, I just put my hands in and it was sudden. I would just hold it like that and lightly like that, just lightly push together and it formed a golf ball. Now it's still not dry, but it's certainly not as wet as it was. And I'd have to push now a little bit further, but even at that, look, even at that it's staying together. There's nothing fluffy about the soil. It's wet on the top, even still after 3 days without watering it. And if I stick my finger down, it's even wetter. Now, as you can see, there's something here, a little alien object sticking out up the soil. Now, he did invest in this humidity detector, if you want, and it's joined to his phone or linked to his phone. And of course, it kept asking for water, more water, and more water. Listen, guys, please use your finger. This is the best weapon in your armory as a gardener. It's extremely sensitive and is much better at telling you your plant needs than anything like that. This plant does need moisture, but doesn't want to be soaked. If the top surface, like this, feels wet, don't water it. If it begins to feel dry and you stick your finger down, and about 2 centimetres down, about 1 inch down, it's sort of like dampish, then you can maybe put a little bit of water on top. But it has to be dry on the surface before you go attacking over and over and over again this watering and constant watering, because you are getting a case of overwatering. Now, it has been watered so much, I don't know what I'm going to find when I try to dig this out. Am I going to find root rot or not? Because my son did say something that is very, very important. He said, no matter how much you water this plant, he was never getting any collection of water inside the saucer. Now, that is a real indication that there's a problem going on down here, a very bad drainage problem. So I'm going to need to get in there and have a look. Because the only way you can try and save an overwatered plant is to get it out, get it into a new medium, a drier medium, and see what the heck is going on with this pot. Not a lot of root formed at all. Some of the roots are a little bit soggy. That one I'm going to be actually removing. These ones seem alright, but there's not a great root development. So let's get this ready to be repotted. Now, I have a smaller one here, but as you can see, the drainage holes are excellent. And I'm not going to put anything in the bottom because I don't like putting anything in the bottom. So what I'm going to do first is mix some potting soil with some perlite and get this ready to plant. Now this is a bit like missing a cake. When you see you've got enough little white bits, that's okay. So now let's start getting this into here. I might need to mix a bit more. Now if I tap it like that, you can see automatically it's going down. So just want to mix a tiny little bit more. What I'm going to do now is just fill up this a little bit more, because this is an avocado, and an avocado, the seed is only ever half buried. Oh, it's a bit hard, that one. No, I don't know, it's a bit stone actually. So your soil level needs to be pretty high before you actually put it in. Okay. That's about right. Just going to make a little well now for its roots. I mean, it hasn't got brilliant roots, but you have to make room for them. Just to pop that in like that. Make sure they're spread out nicely, and it's got to come about here. You don't want to bury it any further. So I'm just going to backfill now, making sure there's no air around those roots. Right, the avocado plant is now been transplanted. I've tamped it down. The seed is above soil level. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually chop it in half. And for that I need to come in close and look for leaf nodes. Now if I get in close to the stem, you can see them just poking out. See, there's one. If I travel up the stem, there's another one. So you want to do is come in right above one of these leaf nodes and just snip it with a nice sharp secateurs. And then what I'm going to do is water it, give it lots and lots of light, if necessary grow lights, and see what happens. Now I want to get back to this pot. So let's just push it around, and I want to get rid of the soil and put it in here and find out what is going on in the base of this pot. Now the deeper I get, that is really, really sodden down here, really sodden. So let's keep going. Okay, there's some quite hefty rocks going on here. Okay, now some of these rocks might actually have been blocking totally the actual holes themselves. Ah, okay. Now this is interesting. Now if you are going to buy a pot or repot something, always have a look at the base. As you can see here, the centre one hasn't been cut out. There are, like in the shape of a cross, there are drainage holes, quite small, but there are. But what I don't like is what's happening on the other four corners. They're deep set, which means they form little pockets, and there's no drainage holes whatsoever. So any of the water can get pooled here and get wicked up constantly back into the soil. And that you do not want with an avocado plant. It wants good drainage, so there should be a lot more holes here, the exact same way as I showed you before in the new pot. Just flick it over here. In the new pot, where there are holes all the way along, both in the upper part and in the lower part. Now, I don't know if you can see, but this sort of bright shiny part is actual water. There's complete condensation there and there and there. It's condensation, actually water pooled. And that's even after I've turned it upside down. Imagine what it was like when the plant was in there. Well, here I am, the same as back as the beginning, but this time it's even more sorry looking plant. It's now got no crown on it, but it at least has some chance of survival now. Before it had no chance of survival. When you do get a waterlogged plant, and you're absolutely sure it is waterlogging, that's the problem, is overwatering, then get it out of that sodden medium, get it into a nice dry medium, mixed with perlite or vermiculite, and you do need to water it in if a transplant, treat it like any other transplant. Any transplanted plant, even if it's been waterlogged before, needs to be watered in. Because this is a good drainage, gone straight through the water, it's now sort of like only damp on the top, not sodden wet like it was before. And from then on, cultivate the finger. As time goes on, keep sticking it in, keep learning how to use this finger, particularly with new gardeners. This is the most useful tool in your garden shed. Even better than the Hurry Hurry, which I can't find at the moment. Even better than my Hurry Hurry, which is for me the second best tool. This is the best. That is the second best. Now I said before this plant is zone 8 through to 11. In my area, certainly zone 6, it would never survive outdoors. It's always going to be a house plant. My son lives in southeast Madrid, which is like a zone 8. So he's at the very, very bottom of that zone, correct zone. But what I would do with him is keep this in a pot until year 3, because by year 3 they're quite sturdy and can withstand quite a bit, and then plant it out in a nice sheltered area, and it probably will survive out there and do quite good, and might even fruit out there. It'll never fruit indoors, but you never know what will happen outdoors. Certainly if it survives, if it comes through this, then year 3 definitely plant it out in his garden to see how it goes. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something about waterlogged or overwatered plants and how to remedy it. And I'll be back out in the garden hopefully next week, and I hope to see you there with me in Granny's garden. Bye bye now, and have a very, very happy new year.